I think we're going to actually get this party started, if that's okay. I see some reserved seats here, but I don't see anybody in them. So there's more seats if anybody shows up. So this is the Filmmaking for Change panel. You all in the right room? Okay, good. So I'm John Fitzgerald, and I'm actually the author of the book Filmmaking for Change. I brought a few, and you don't have to pay me for them, but if anybody wants one, I'll hand them over. I have a few more in the back. But before we get started with introductions, I'm just really curious because we've both been in this space for quite a few years, and we've talked to emerging filmmakers, we've talked to studio executives. Just with a show of hands, how many people in the room are actual filmmakers? Okay. And executives or acquisition? Okay. And of the filmmakers, how many of you actually have a finished film, or that you're just in the development or production stages? Okay, this is finished film and in production. Post, okay. And how many of you just have an idea and you want to make a movie that can make a difference? Okay, good mix. Amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna do a really quick 2-minute overview of my background, and then I'm gonna toss it to my superstar partner here. So before I dive in, just because it's the last year in Park City and because I'm wearing this Sundance 95 hat, and you guys are probably wondering why I'm wearing this hat. So the very first year of Sundance, we literally set up down the hall in this building from the original Sundance screening room. And we showed our films that didn't get in to Sundance. And we took all the fallout. So we filled the theater. We ran our own projectors and everything. So it's kind of a trip down memory lane for me. So sorry to go off on the aside, but I had to do it. So anyway, I've been in the festival game since Sundance 95. I did AFI Fest for 3 years, did Santa Barbara, did one in Abu Dhabi. But what I learned over the course of watching thousands of films was that I was really attracted more to social impact films with some social relevance. So I decided I wanted to get back into production, and I did with a documentary called The Back Nine. And then I made a handful of other films, and we're going to show you a clip, not now, but in a little while, of one of the films that I did, just to give you a sense of the story and kind of what it meant to the team. And for the last few years, I've really been involved in curating and helping festivals get films, and then also helping filmmakers navigate the festival strategy. For those of you who have a finished film, you probably know how hard it is now to get your film out, not just in the film festival world, but also find the right distribution model for your film. We're going to talk about that too. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Starr to give us some background about her work.
Yeah, hi, nice to meet everyone. I'll give you a background on who I am and what I've done and what I do, but really I also want to set this up that John and I have approached this in a very casual way, this conversation. I know you guys have joined a million panels this weekend, but we really want to make it a conversation with you all as much as we can. So we're going to chat, we're going to give you some examples, we're going to give you some overviews of how to think intentionally about impact across the life cycle of your development process, across the film life cycle, and then just open it up to conversation. So if there's things we say and you want to chat about it later, let's do that. So this is as much of a conversation as it possibly can be in a room like this. But basically, I'm Nicole. I am a social impact executive. I've worked in the entertainment industry for, over 20 years, starting off at 20th Century Fox, doing branded partnerships. And then I moved to participant media in about, does the sound weird? No, it's okay. Okay. I went to participant 12 years ago and worked there for about 11 years until we closed on the social impact team. And so I developed social impact campaigns that went across our slate. I worked on RBG documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, or An Inconvenient Sequel, Roma, Judas and the Black Messiah, a ton of films, really thinking about how do we partner our films with organizations that are doing work on the ground to help accelerate change in the world. And about 5 years ago, I realized that a lot of the campaign work was post-content greenlight process. And that to really maximize the impact and to organize around the impact as a production company, it made sense to start thinking earlier in the life cycle about that impact. So I talked to David Lindy, who is our CEO, and we created a new role where I sat at the early development process, really thinking about, with every piece of content that came into participant, why do we believe that this piece of content can create change in the world? What change do we think that might be? Where does this film fall within the kind of the movement that it's addressing or the community that it's addressing? And in my role, I was able to provide resources to filmmakers as they were thinking about their film and as they were in the development. That could mean reading scripts, that could mean connecting them with organizations and community members who have lived experience in that area or research in that area that might help them in their creative journey. As well as filtering that sort of business objective of what we believed that this film can do from an impact perspective, filtering that into our greenlight process. So really making a part of everything we did. And then I would hand that off to our campaigns team. So I was the why we believe things could create impact, and our campaign team became the how in building that campaign out. And then after participant closed, David and I started talking about how do we bring this model of impact that we've created into the broader filmmaking community. And so we co-founded Fourth Act, which is my impact consultancy, and we've been around for about a year now. And really, our goal is to support filmmakers, studio executives, production companies to apply a lens of impact at various stages across the content lifecycle. So we can support during development. We can come in to support, as you're thinking about how to position the film for sales. Again, we're not sales agents, but can support that kind of, what is the cultural moment of this film? What does it speak to? And help kind of that moment. All the way through audience engagement and release through various campaigns. So that's a little bit about my background and what I do and what I love doing and what we can talk about in more detail.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and we're going to jump back to Nicole to dive a little deeper in her impact and integrating that into development in a bit. So I thought I would just talk for a moment about the idea of development and production, because I know we have a good number of people here that are in development or do have ideas but haven't made the film yet. And one of the reasons why I wrote Filmmaking for Change is because I started analyzing a lot of the documentaries that were happening, and this is, I think, 2012. So this is a while ago that this book's been out. But what I learned was that, when I was growing up, documentary, a lot of them were just talking heads, and there wasn't a whole lot of structure to them. And what we started seeing with a lot of the films at Participant, The Cove, I showed one of my films at the same festival as The Cove, and of course, An Inconvenient Truth. But a lot of these movies started having more structure, three-act structures, and I started analyzing them and realized that a lot of them were using Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, in fact. And so I started developing documentaries with the hero's journey in mind, just to make them more interesting, even if it's subconscious. It's a three-act structure that's got a lot of other levels to it, but it helps you think about the movie and the structure and the story you're trying to tell. And whether you're doing a movie about climate change or you're doing a movie about human rights, there's so many categories. Participant was brilliant. They did all these reports about the different categories and the audiences that come to these categories. And I was just, frankly, following everything that they were doing. And so what I learned was that you can actually structure these movies in advance. And some people know they want to tell a story, but they don't necessarily know what it's going to be yet. And so it's literally, you can open a magazine, you can open the newspaper. I did one of these panels last year. I brought a newspaper in and literally was looking at the different story candidates. And on the first page, there were 10 articles that could have very easily become a documentary. So the stories are out there. It just depends on what your goals are, right? And some people, I have a client right now that is doing a documentary, just finished a documentary, and it's about this really heinous drug that was unfortunately poured all over these people, these army folks that were on ships, and they weren't told that they were testing in the water, and almost all of them are dead now. And the government just kept pushing it until they waited for everybody to die, because then they didn't have to do anything about it. And so it's tragic what happened to this guy, and or not the guy, but all the people connected to that. But he's trying to tell this story because he wants legislation done. He's got a very specific mission. Some people just want to educate about something that people may not know about. So there's preaching to the choir, and then there's developing new models and educating people that don't know enough about it to learn how they can take action. And there's a really big difference between an amazing documentary like Hoop Dreams, for example, that was originally going to be a short film and a simple idea that turned into a 10-year odyssey and became one of the best documentaries ever made. But that wasn't necessarily made to have a call to action. Some people want to make a documentary with a call to action. So I think it's important to know your goals, know if there's an audience, and know how to do a budget. And if you don't know how to do one, find a producer that can help you, and get somebody like Nicole to help you develop all the impact ideas and the through lines that can help you make a difference with that film early on. And she's going to talk about that. But the other thing to think about is if you're going to develop it yourself, which most documentaries are done because there's not a huge pool of money to fund them, is think about how much it's going to cost and how you're going to raise the money. Are you going to do a crowdfunding campaign? Are you going to sell? Are you going to sell shares? Are you going to use a credit card? How are you going to fund this thing, and how are you going to pay back investors if in fact you are taking somebody's money? So you have to have a subscription agreement. There's a whole thing that is tied to that. So you have to know how you're going to raise the money. You have to know, can you reach these goals? Everybody just assumes if you make a documentary that Netflix is going to buy it. Not the case anymore. I think they bought 2 or 3 last year out of Sundance, like 5 months later or something, and they were huge filmmakers like Fisher Stevens, I think. They were filmmakers that everybody knew. So it's really hard. And tomorrow there's a distribution panel, if you didn't already know it, at 10 a.m. We're going to talk about distribution. But the important thing is to know you don't want to make a movie just for your friends and family. You want to make a movie that's going to move the needle and hopefully create change. So think about how you're going to produce it. And I'm going to stop talking in a minute and show you a clip. But what's interesting is we talked about Hoop Dreams. Hoop Dreams was, again, shot over 10 years. The Cove was made, I mean, it's like a thriller. How many have seen The Cove? Yeah, if you haven't, you got to see it. So this won the Oscar. And it's really, it feels like a thriller. But it's a documentary. But it took a ton of planning and a huge team. And they tracked the whole process. And it's remarkable what they pulled off with that movie. The highest pass we did in 21 days. And it was basically, we flew to India and shot 21 consecutive days, and we flew home. And we had a ton of footage, and then we had to put it all together. But from a development and storytelling perspective, I thought it was interesting to share this. We actually mapped it all out on a whiteboard. We're gonna follow this Indian yogi guru who's gonna ride up to the highest motorable road in the world on a motorcycle in his Ray-Bans, because he learned that his prophecy, which they give you when you're born in India, said that he was going to die in an accident at the age of 27. So his whole thing is he wanted to face his fears. So we structured it all out. We're going to have these writers follow him up. We're going to have these characters, an ensemble piece. He's going to be the mentor. We're going to have the mechanic following these people. It's going to be a great story. And the guy that brought me the idea was going to co-direct with me. And anyway, we get up there and we realize the mechanic doesn't speak very good English. And he has very little personality, certainly not something that we wanted to celebrate on camera. And so we completely changed the structure when we got up there, and we knew what we were going to do when we got back. But when you watch the trailer, hopefully you can track what I'm saying. Like, you'll see there's different people involved. You see what the story's about. But from a development standpoint and a production standpoint, I thought it was important to know. So we shot this movie for about $125,000. All in, it probably cost around $250-ish, and it did festivals, and I'll talk about the distribution thing later. But if we're ready back there, can we show the clip for the highest pass? Can we see it with the windows the way they are? Okay.
Since I was a kid, I've been wanting someone that I could call my guru, and I found an aunt. We offered this challenge to a group of people to take this amazing journey into the Himalayas, over the highest road in the world, all on motorcycles.
This is the highest pass, Kardungla, the highest drivable road in the world. We will be the first riders who are going this season. We get to create the mood of the highest road in the world.
Never wanted to ride a bike. I think it's dangerous. I'll just say yes. I'll just say yes now because I want to go to the Himalayas and I want to be with Anand. People are afraid. It's true. Everyone has a fear going on. I know I have tons of it.
We are in no man's land. Bad streams on the road, we'll find muddy road, we'll find snow.
The worst case scenario kept playing itself over and over into my head.
This is not just a bike adventure. This is the highest path, the highest self. Have more love in your heart than fear. It's too much to ask to not be afraid. Not afraid at all. Our love can trump the fear.
Reaching out to chase forever, watching for the signs go, living without a word of explaining where we're going. Golden days, don't really understanding.
After what we've been through, there's no ceiling on what we can do.
The most outrageous, life-threatening, insane, blissful, audacious adventure that I've had.
The highest drivable road in the world is within us. All this journey is to realize that. Who are we and what are we living for?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to toss it over to Nicole really quick, but just to show you, like, that was done in 21 days consecutively, and a lot of people end up shooting a movie for 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 years. So, and this, again, there was no real call to action, but the people that have seen it have said that it's inspired them and that, you know, they're trying to face their fears. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the integration of impact in the early stages?
Absolutely. I love how you said that the filmmakers didn't know you didn't know what the call to action was or the impact was, and that's completely natural. I think that the way I approach this type of, connecting storytelling into movements is that I believe all films impact us in some way or another. We see ourselves, we see others, we travel to places we've never been before, we see the world in a new way through these stories. And so by thinking intentionally about impact during your development process, you're really thinking about what is it that I want audiences to take away, and you can start to create a roadmap to ensure that that is the impact audiences are having. And so I've worked on narrative films, scripted films, which I love doing, as well as documentaries. So I'll give a few examples, but when you believe that the film itself is impact, you can't change hearts and minds until people see the story. There's a lot of things you can do to really strengthen that opportunity for impact and to maximize the creative vision of that story. And so I'll just give a couple examples, if that's okay, just on different films we've worked on. But when I was at Participant, we worked on this beautiful scripted film called Out of My Mind, produced by Peter Seraph, who is here again with Little Miss Sunshine. He made that movie. And this movie is, Out of My Mind, is based on a best-selling children's novel, and it's about a 12-year-old girl, Melody, who has cerebral palsy, and she's transitioning from her special ed class into a mainstream sixth grade class. And Peter was really, really passionate about ensuring that the script itself was representing the community and the audience that is really going to champion this film the most, that were really authentically portraying Melody in the best way possible. And so he shared the film with many different families with cerebral palsy to have them read the script, give notes. And I brought in a wonderful cultural collaborator, consultant, Lawrence Carter Long, who also has cerebral palsy, and he read the script with us. And the collaborative process and him reading the script and sharing his thoughts with the filmmaking team was so joyful and so fun, because just collectively we were all learning new things together. It just in a really beautiful way, and things that we wouldn't have known unless we had that lived experience. But one scene in particular, Melody is nonverbal with cerebral palsy, but she gets a Medi-talker so she can start to communicate with her family. And there's a scene where she says, "I love you" to her mom for the first time. And the way the script was written, the mom was very emotional, powerful scene. She's very moved and, emotional, cries. It's touching. And Lawrence read it and he's like, "Really?" And we're like, "What? What do you mean, really?" And he's like, "Of course she knows that her daughter loves her. Like, just because she's not verbal doesn't mean she doesn't know it." We're like, "Oh," he's like, "You're writing this scene through the lens of the mother, but it's Melody's story." Instead, when she says this, it's Melody being able to express it and say it, through her, talker for the first time. The mom, it's just more natural. The mom responds, "I know, I love you too." And to see the joy that Melody has and being able to just have that exchange. And it was beautiful. There's these light touches that can happen to just, again, deepen, the future engagement you're going to have and the takeaway you're going to have with your audience. And so there's a lot of really wonderful cultural consultants and organizations that are very skilled in doing this work through a scripted perspective. And from documentary, it's also really helpful as well. As you start to, I'm working on a film now called This Land of Ours, and it's an environmental documentary set in the Caribbean. And it has a very local story about the impact of developers coming into this one island nation in the Caribbean and the impact it has on the people who live there from land rights, but also the environmental impact of this development that is really harming the land. And it's a specific story, but it has a global impact. This is happening everywhere in the world. And so the filmmakers brought in, Fourth Act and another impact producer to really start thinking strategically about what is going to be that impact and that journey that this film is going to have, and how can we be thinking about that as we are producing this film. Who are the champions of this film? What are the organizations that are really going to gather around this film and lift it up? And what resources can we start to think about developing? And so we're starting to connect in with, environmental partners, with different champions, with different leaders, and just start to build this community around this film so that by the time it gets distributed, we know that North Star of what the potential for this film can be.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to come back to hear more about that and the workflow in a moment. I'm just going to talk for literally a minute, maybe two, on the distribution idea, because again, at the end of the day, you're not making this for your friends and family. You're hoping that you can make a difference and you want to reach as many people as you can. And there's a ton of case studies if you want to look for case studies on these films and how they've, reached X number of eyeballs and how much money they spent and what territories they played in. And I would just urge you, if you're interested, to literally seek case studies on social impact movies and documentary and scripted narrative for that matter. But one thing that we know for sure is that all of these impact campaigns are really anchored by exhibition. So you really need to find the right paths, and there is no one way. And I would just say, just to think about it, a lot of film festivals out there now, really important to do your homework and know which festivals can actually help you. Certain festivals, it's great just to, have a top 50 festival on your poster, have some laurels. But my day job is helping filmmakers navigate film festivals and distribution. And I can't tell you how many of them come to me where they've already played a bunch of festivals that can't help them. There's not a lot of audience there. They don't have credibility in the industry. So if they're trying to get, a doorway open to Sony Classics or Neon or A24 or any of the other distributors that handle docs or Netflix, whoever, it helps to have credible laurels on your materials, right? So you want to play the right festivals and not blow a couple $1,000s on application fees to festivals that can't really help you. And you can send the film to the distribution companies, or you can find a sales agent that'll do that for you. That's another thing that's really easy to search. Circus Road's a good one. There's a bunch out there, but the point is have somebody help you, champion for you to get your film to the right sales agent so they can get it in front of the right distributors. Really hard to get a minimum guarantee these days. But what's really exciting is that there's a lot more opportunities. Everybody talks about how broken Hollywood is. Well, that might be true, but there's a lot of opportunities for independent filmmakers. You just have to be more of an entrepreneur. You have to think outside the box. You have to think of where your audience might be. You have to create a groundswell, whether you're doing non-traditional, non-theatrical event screenings. I have a friend that's taken his movie across the country. It's called The Occult. He's played in over 100 theaters now. He's packing the theaters. He's doing Q&As afterwards. It's like a road show, but he's doing great. And he's going to try and make $1 million. And there's another movie called Hundreds of Beavers, which isn't necessarily a social impact movie. But the truth is, these movies are finding an audience, and they're doing it with documentary too. And my guy Autumn Gold's going to do a road show with that film too. So I think it's important to think about all the different distribution opportunities, carve it out. Don't hand it over to somebody like Gravitas, who will take all rights in 15 years and not give you any money. They'll throw it up on iTunes and Google Play and Amazon for you, but they're not going to do any marketing, so nobody's going to hear about it. Nobody's going to know where you are. So get creative and find your own model. And if you're in this room, then chances are your project could be really strong in the educational market. There's a handful of distributors out there, The Video Project, Collective Eye, Kino, there's a bunch of them. And these folks will take your film into the educational system, the universities and high schools. Huge market for movies that have something to say. Curriculum, I'm sure we're going to talk about that. I'll let her handle that. But the toolkits, curriculum, all these discussion guides, people need opportunities to talk about these movies. So get really creative with the distribution model, because their audience is out there. People, they've done studies, and it's confirmed that people want to see movies about other people and other things in this world. They want to connect. So it's not always about escapism to get people off the couch. It's just, hopefully you can create an experience. And, you know, whether it's Kinema or Gravitas, if people can't get to a screening, there's virtual events you can do. And you can do Q&As after the screening, virtually, for people that couldn't get to one of your roadshows. So a lot of opportunities. I have a Substack called On the Circuit. I talk a lot about these opportunities, so you can visit On the Circuit on Substack. All right, I'm going to toss it over to you to talk about impact in your current project.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you talking about the distribution, because there is no impact if people don't see the film. So it's really important. Where to start? I would say that I come to all of this work, you know, again, really thinking about impact as a business model and a business imperative, and how it actually helps the bottom line of a film. So from a distribution perspective, looking at you, impact can really help grow your audience, an impact campaign, because again, you're connecting in with a unique audience that maybe traditional marketers aren't really thinking about, but these are people who see themselves in your film, who are going to celebrate your film, who are going to lift it up in a really natural and organic way. So you can create partnerships with community partners, nonprofits, foundations. They're really going to put a lot of steam behind your film through these impact campaigns and really grow that audience. In addition, impact campaigns during distribution can help elevate a conversation. You know, it can differentiate your film from similar films around maybe a similar issue or topic, or during awards season, really help elevate, you know, cultural conversation that even deepens the meaning of your story. We're working on The Voice of Hind Rajab, which was just nominated recently for an Academy Award. And, you know, the awards campaign is really an opportunity to hit, for lack of a better word, the important button, you know, and really talk about what this film is about on a deeper meaning, and connect into organizations that can move audiences to take action, as well as government officials and policy if that is a goal of the filmmakers or the distributors. But one thing, I'll give an example of a film that I was able to work on last year. It's not an independent film, it's a very commercial film, but I want to give the example to show that I know sometimes we talk about impact films, but truly all films have the potential to engage audiences. And I was thrilled to work on Wicked for Good last year, doing an audience engagement campaign around sustainability. And so NBC Universal, well, they're not a mission-driven organization. They have a specific team, a sustainability team, that is looking to see how do we support our films from a sustainability production perspective, and how do we engage audiences and help bring them resources to you know, help take action, take part in the world, to make the world just greener and healthier. And so Fourth Act came on, and we supported in creating a social impact campaign. Actually, sorry, not a social impact campaign, an audience engagement campaign that utilized talent from the film to create PSAs that helped encourage people to take Elphabet spirit into their own lives and take small everyday actions to be green for good. So it was a very fun, joyful campaign. I love joy. I say it a lot, but I've worked on a lot of campaigns in the environmental space. Like I said, in a convenient sequel, things that focus a lot on policy, and so much has been undone in the last 10 years. And so to give audiences who were looking for something to do, a deeper way to connect with these incredible characters, to give them actions they can just do in their communities, in their neighborhoods, with their friends, come together. No one can stop us from doing that. And that felt so empowering in a new way. For me, working on a campaign, it was really, really cool. So if we have a minute and we want to watch Cynthia Erivo for a hot second, we can play the PSA for Wicked for Good, and we can talk a little bit about some of the tactics we use, and then start to wrap it up and open up.
Green can be more than a color. It can be a way of showing up. Alphabet taught us that standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, is its own kind of magic. We can't let good be just all.
It's the right PSA, just no Cynthia. There is a video. All right. Well, just in case we can't get it, you can go to the campaign site, begreenforgood.com. And you can see all the different PSAs we created and the different tools and tactics. Oh, is he? Let's keep talking. But I will say, while we're figuring that out, one thing I was interested in after participant closed is just seeing, there's so much happening in our industry right now, and just seeing who is interested in this work still, who's interested in investing in impact, who's interested in supporting impact campaigns. How do we talk about impact in the industry? And again, this example with Universal was so heartening because we were able to do this audience engagement campaign and launch it a month before the film came out, which means that there are huge players in our industry that are trusting their audience and trusting that they want to engage more deeply with their stories and launch these opportunities to do that. So that's just a big win that I've seen in our field. But yeah. You want to start from the beginning?
Do you think we're going to get the clip or no? Okay. No, perfect. All right, let's try it.
Start from the beginning.
No, it's not the trailer. It's the, what do they call it? It's
a PSA, but,
right, but it's called Good.
Green for Good.
Green for Good. It says Green for Good at the very beginning.
It can be a way of showing up. Alphabet taught us that standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, is its own kind of magic. We can't let good be just a word. It has to change things. Being green for good means showing up for the environment, for the people protecting it, and for the wild places and creatures that we love. Our actions, big and small, can help us reconnect with the outdoors and restore nature in our own neighborhoods, building stronger, healthier communities for good.
Good, 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 good.
Gather your friends and join me in showing the world what it means to be green for good.
Think of what we can do together.
So just a minute on that, I guess, and then we'll open it up.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much ready to open it up. Again, Universal put that PSA in theaters all across the country. We created digital toolkits giving audiences specific actions they can take to protect the environment, to protect animals. We had influencers do a lot of content, but really got the message out there to engage folks in a deeper way. So we said we weren't going to talk that long, and we talked a lot. So
a little over, but we still got 20 minutes for you. Okay, so let's open it up. Yeah.
I'm wondering in terms of working with people on impact campaigns. I have a film that I'm doing, and it's in post-production, but we created a 10-minute progress reel that I've been bringing out to for screenings with panels and talkbacks. And I just wonder how, in working with an impact producer, and I could reach out to them, but how you work with
yeah, absolutely. Well, fourth act is designed to come in and out at different stages. So we can come in for a moment to really service whatever the needs are at that moment. And if someone is thinking, okay, it would be really helpful to have that impact narrative and to understand what the potential impact of our story is as we go out to funders, as we go out to, whatever the needs are, we can come in, help identify, that early impact perspective for you and deliver that, and then step out until you're ready, for more deeper engagement. But that's one way.
Yeah, and our company, Cause Pictures, does impact campaigns, but not as developed as what they do. What we focus on is doing what I call an impact campaign blueprint, where we break down all the materials that you're going to need, focusing a lot more on distribution strategies and impact strategies, a lot of the things I talked about on the panel in terms of community screenings, educational screenings. So it's more of a macro kind of come up with a plan, 20 pages, 50 pages or whatever, and then hand it over to a company like theirs. We'll tell everybody how to find us at the end. But yeah, go ahead. You gotta turn it on, I think. Or just yell.
Go for it. The question I have is actually based off the PSA we just saw, creating impact. Watching that and seeing a big media, what I would consider a big media conglomerate, putting out a PSA like that almost feels radical because of the forces of like conglomerates and big business in the United States right now. Can either of you speak directly to conversations you've had with distributors or production companies relating to doing impact work and maybe their desire to soften the message or tailor it in a way that wouldn't affect their financial aspect? You know what I'm saying.
I totally. No, that's why I actually was really excited to show this, because it was heartening for me to work with a company as large as Universal on a campaign like this. I will say again, I did not present myself when I started talking to them as, hey, let's develop an impact campaign for Wicked for Good. I said, let's develop an audience engagement campaign. And they said, great, let's look at that. Not once did Cynthia say climate change. Not once did, we didn't go political. So there are ways to be really thoughtful and intentional about how you can engage people without using language that may be challenging for a distributor. And I think that is A-okay. The goal is if we can get the work done, if we can help reach 70 million, people and the biggest, and the biggest audience in the world with ways to care for animals, care for nature, care for our communities, help make the world green, language like that, but give them the tools to do it, that's a win, And so again, I'm really impressed with Universal believing in their audience, and their audience did see those themes, and if you do audience surveys, they saw those themes and they wanted to get engaged. So I hope that we see a little bit more of that, but again, don't lead with impact, lead with audience engagement.
And the other thing that Nicole just said that I didn't say earlier that I think is really important, and a lot of people don't know this, is surveys are really important. Do surveys, get feedback. A lot of you are going to be so close to the movie, you just need an outside perspective, and you need to make sure that the things you think are landing. And I mean, studios do it. I mean, really good production companies do it. It's important. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I work with Entertainment to Affect Change and provide fiscal sponsorships for independent films.
I'm using you guys right now on several projects.
Haha, thank you. Yes, and we love to work with independent filmmakers. So, I mean, obviously, if you have a major organization, have distribution, fantastic. So many independent filmmakers do not even have the funding, but what we're trying to do is get even sponsors, and we have tax-deductible donations that we can get. Just wondering if you don't have the funding, to put toward these PSAs or other things. We're trying to get the influencers, some of the other, actors to come in. Can you provide any kind of potential advice or resources?
Are you talking about seeking funding to support your impact campaign? Or are you talking about ways to have a successful impact campaign without funding? Because that's an interesting play. And she alluded to that. So I think that what is lost a lot of times is partnerships. Most of these movies that have had really successful impact campaigns were thinking early days about the types of organizations that could support them. and it's not always about money. You can get these companies that have millions, sometimes just a few 100,000, which isn't bad, to get word out to their community. That's marketing. And sometimes there's a trade, there's a sponsorship, what we call an exchange of benefits, right? So they might not give you money, but they'll give you exposure, or they'll put clips on the website. So there's a lot of opportunities there. In terms of raising funds, there's really only 3 or 4 ways that make sense in the independent film space, really. It's crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding, donations, and folks like you can take the tax-deductible donation. E2AC is a great example of that. And then I've got a couple projects, and we're selling equity, $5,000 for 1 point. And so there's a lot of different ways to do it, but it does come back to what we talked about in the very beginning, which is goals. What's your goal? How much do you need to spend? And how much is how important is it to make your money back or make money versus just kind of knowing that it's going to create change and it's not about the money? Those are important considerations as well. Yeah.
I'm one of those filmmakers that is independent and trying to get their film out. My film's almost finished, so I'm thinking a lot about how I want it to reach a lot of people. It's been an impact-driven project from the beginning, but it's my first feature, and so I'm curious if you guys would talk a little bit about how like windowing comes into play with impact and distribution, like versus, getting big distribution where it's streaming and available to a lot of people. How do you think about scheduling these events? And
I'll tackle that first really quickly, but the windowing thing is a bit tricky with independent documentaries, because you really, the traditional path is play festivals, get the attention of acquisitions folks. If they can't make the festival, you can send them a screener link, but you want to wait to see if you can get them to see it in the theater first, so you don't do that right out of the gate. What happens is a lot of these independent distributors start sending you emails saying, I heard you just got into Mill Valley. Can you send us a screener? The answer is no. You want them to see it in the theater with an audience because they're going to have a greater impact, right? But eventually, halfway through your run, you might have to start sharing that. But the hybrid model seems to be the most successful model now, because again, for emerging filmmakers who don't know any better, sometimes the what I call bottom feeders of the distribution chain will reach out and say, we love your movie, you want to take it out, and we're not giving you any money, and we want it for 15 years, and then they'll put it up on iTunes and Google Play and Amazon, and then nobody finds it, and you're stuck with this guy for 15 years. So it's really important to talk to sales agents and get the right information. Tons of articles on the Substack I was telling you about that. But the window thing isn't the same with these independent films as it is with the bigger studio films, and you could speak to that. But I think the important thing is do your homework, talk to sales agents. You can do community screenings, you can do impact screenings, you can do road shows, but it's better to take control of it. If you play a ton of festivals, you win some awards, you could get an offer from a Netflix and HBO, whatever, and that's fine. But you may not see another dime after that. So you kind of got to decide, are they going to let me do the educational screens? Are they going to let me do the impact campaign? Or I get to tell everybody it's on Netflix, but it's not creating change.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question to that.
Okay, you got to go fast because we got other questions.
With the impact campaign events, like, can I start screening the film before it's,
No. No, not if it's public. You can do private, but you can't do public because then you blow your premiere status and it pisses distributors off. So you got to do private under the radar. Do you want to talk about the bigger?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have done small test screenings with our core audience before from an impact perspective. So with the campaign Roma, it was in service of domestic workers and domestic workers' rights. But as a domestic worker, it can be a difficult movie to watch. And so we wanted to make sure that this actually is a story that specific community saw themselves in and could utilize to accelerate work. And so we did a very small private screenings with specifically domestic workers. They saw it before the talent in some cases. And that informed our campaign and helped put the green light on our campaign and helped give all of us confidence to move forward. So I would say when you are, though, when you get a distributor, you do need to negotiate that impact cadence with them. But if you have a general strategy, general idea of what you're hoping to do, and you have talked to those community partners, again, it can be an asset where you can say, I'm bringing these partners to our film. We're going to grow the reach of the audience. We're going to elevate a conversation. We need to work with you to do it. And then you create that cadence together.
Great point. Yeah.
Thanks. So my name's Claire Tuft. I'm a producer and writer, but I took a little hiatus during the pandemic.
To become a therapist, and so now I'm trying to bring mental health counseling to the film world, where it's amazing. A lot of my focus right now is in the development and production stages, development from like a consulting perspective, especially when mental health issues through the script. A lot of this is more so in the doc world, but trying to get the narrative. And then the production phase, where on-set counselors, secondary trauma, all that good stuff, right? I'm curious about the distribution and impact campaign side, where there may be a secondary impact campaign opportunity, where it has nothing to where it's about the production itself. Because right now, so much of the work is like advocacy and letting people know, like, hey, therapists can help you with your project and industry change, working with the unions and all that. So, if it's a production that utilizes those resources and wants to use that as also something to get the word out about their project, like, hey, we were a production that had an accessibility coordinator, that had a mental health coordinator. Does that, having like a two-stream impact campaign or something, does that muddy the water? Is that too busy? Just any thoughts?
It depends on the control. I think that's where we come back to the idea of not giving it over to somebody that's not going to appreciate that. They're just going to, it's just a volume play and they want to get it up on all these platforms. If you can control it, you're in better position. But the other thing is partnerships. Again, that's how you get the word out. Have you seen Wisdom of Trauma? Okay, so you need to look up Wisdom of Trauma. And what they did with their film is a documentary based on a book. And they created the most unique distribution campaign. And the guys, he has a membership program for people, and it's all about trauma. And so it leans into what you're talking about. And they made money, and they created membership, and they have courses. So yeah, check out Wisdom of Trauma.
Yeah, and just a clarifying question, are you asking if you're providing mental health resources on a set that needs it, yet the story itself is not about mental health? That's it. So great. More of everything. I think that's wonderful when productions are intentional about either being sustainable in their production, being so excellent in setting new standards in the industry around mental health care on set. That was one of my notes, actually. That's a service you can use. Whether it's about having accessible sets, those are topics of conversation that can naturally come out as the film comes into the world and connect it into the spaces who would really appreciate that. But I'm going to blank on the name of the film. It was so amazing about the deaf family who, Coda, thank you. Love that film. But I heard yes. And so much of the conversation after that was the cast talking about how they had never been on a set where so many deaf actors were, and what an experience that was to be able to have lunch with everyone together and have these conversations. And so many people learn sign language. And that's not a campaign, but that is impact to think about how to be more inclusive. So yes, there are a lot of different things you can do to elevate conversation.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, we've only got 7 minutes left, but Nicole and I agreed that we have time after. So even though we're going to get booted, we can go into the lounge if anybody didn't get to ask their question, and we can hang out for a few minutes. Yes, sir.
What is your measurement? How do you measure?
Yeah. Great question.
Great question.
Great question. So,
we should talk about how sponsors care about that.
Sponsors very much care about that. Everybody cares about that. So basically, there's you need to have really specific goals for every campaign that are measurable and are realistic and are achievable. Two things you can always measure. If you believe the film in itself is impact, you have brought a story into the world that's going to change the way people think and see, about a certain issue. You can measure, did your film get into the world? Was it screened? Was it seen? Did it get distribution? You can measure that. And then you can also measure the conversation that was elevated around the film. With a campaign comes an impact narrative. We want these three things. We want domestic workers to be visible, valued, and for people to be talking about their rights. Is that associated with press around your film, Roma? Is that associated with what is that impact narrative that you elevated? Did the press pick it up? Did they talk about it? Did you get into the world? So you start to measure that. And then the more specific impact goals, was policy an impact goal? Did you meet with filmmakers? Did you meet, not filmmakers, legislators? Did you organize people to support a certain petition or measurement? Did you build community? Did you strengthen nonprofits' work? Did you help them accelerate their work? How do they measure that? What were their goals and how did this film help them? So there just are very specific things you do, but the answer is always in the partners that you're working with, the nonprofit partners. What do they think they can achieve with this film? And let's create a campaign that's realistic about that and is also realistic about where the film comes in on the spectrum of the movement. Are we just at awareness? Are we at a tipping point with policy? Where are we? And so be realistic, be exact, be precise.
Yeah, and there's a great case study on Food Inc. that you can research. And they did surveys with the Lear Center, and they proved that people that hadn't been vegetarians, that went vegetarian, their diet changed, their health changed. So they did it through surveys.
Yeah, exactly. Behavior change. You can pay for that.
Yeah. Yeah, in the back there. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to combine a couple of these things. So I am a filmmaker. I am a true crime documentarian, but specifically I'm trying to radicalize this industry with it. So I want to talk about taking true crime into impact. So I am also a certified mental health coordinator under the Association of Mental Health Coordinators. And my first feature is using Ted Bundy as the example. I am bringing humanity to the story. I'm bringing the trauma survivors to the forefront, but I'm also doing this through a trauma-informed lens. And I want to educate people, not just audiences, but trauma survivors themselves who find themselves in these positions of getting asked to do documentaries, these television series. I'm a television producer as well. So all of this is about changing for sustainability, but ethically, and how we move forward as an industry without re-traumatization and re-victimization.
That's a great question. I'll let her talk, but I want to just say that that is a genre that is exploding, if for anybody that didn't already know that, and if you can do it in an ethical way, and there have been studies about that issue of ethics in that space. So I would do the deep dive there because you should talk to Peter Broderick, who supported Wisdom of Trauma. He's a good guy for you to talk to for sure.
No, I think that's great. I think that we often look to organization to support and represent communities, that whose stories are being told, and work with them closely to make sure that we are telling a story in the most responsible way possible and providing the resources that they need. And there's more organizations out there who are doing this work to support filmmakers. There's one organization who supports young children who have had a lived experience that are either actors or in a documentary, and they support how those children go through the journey of going to premieres, being interviewed, and then what happens to them afterwards, And so there are a lot of great resources, and thank you for being so thoughtful in exposing this.
Yeah. Okay, so we have time for one more question, but just in case everybody gets up and races out and you can't hear us, we're going to tell you how you can find us right now, and then we'll remind you that we will be in the Mixer Lounge if you have more questions. So you can find me at John@Cause Pictures. That's my email. causepictures.com is my website. And on the Fest Circuit on Substack with some articles that might be helpful.
And star 2 hours at fourthact.com and on LinkedIn. N-star. So NSTARR at Fourth Act. Spell it out. Yep. filmmaking.com, and always on LinkedIn.
Okay, that's good too.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. We have time for one more. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Alicia. I'm a line producer. I mostly work in the narrative space. My husband actually shot Coda. He was one of the camera operators on Coda.
Wonderful.
So, yeah. You know, there's a little competition in the family, whatever. I'm advising a short filmmaker right now. We're making a narrative project about a phobia, but she wants to make a whole side documentary about it to do an impact campaign. How often are you seeing that? Good idea, bad idea, bandwidth, all those kinds of things.
I don't know if I could speak to how good of ideas. I think it comes to what are your resources and your funding, you know. But I am working with a filmmaker right now who is developing a short animated film, and we came on board to create an impact perspective for that. But he is intentionally using that short film as a case study for a scripted narrative. And has also created graphic novels. So he's creating this whole world very intentionally around this, and is presenting when he goes to funders as that whole package. So he's very intentional about what he wants to do there.
Okay, cool. I think that's it. But before everybody goes, can I take everybody's picture? All right, now you have to clap, so it looks like we did this right. Okay, ready? I've actually never done that before, told people to clap, but thank you for clapping. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Nicole, you're amazing. Thank you.